Anne, hello, how are you?
Hi, Will. Good, I'm good.
So we were talking in the office earlier, and we thought we'd just jump on camera to just have a little bit of a chat of this because there's sort of two Quangos, one big one which everyone have heard of, and
Absolutely.
another one which other people perhaps wouldn't have heard of that have been really quite annoying us this week.
Yeah.
Now, I'll go into mine in a little bit. But the one you were talking about earlier was actually our old favourite, HMRC, His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, because I believe recently, after, of course, not answering the phones to hardworking taxpayers, they've actually been considering spying on people's social media accounts, I believe.
Yeah.
So what's got your gripes about that? What's really irritated you about that?
I mean, it is something straight out of 1984. So they have just announced that they're going to use AI to spy on people's social media accounts to look for examples of tax evasion if people's high-end lifestyles don't match what they're saying on their tax forms. And it is properly spying on people. It's a massive invasion of privacy, and there is a massive risk that this AI is going to get it wrong.
Like it has before in other cases. So, for example, the Horizon scandal, right?
Exactly. So that they got it extremely wrong, and I'm not entirely sure that HMRC is the kind of institution that would be willing and able to take the responsibility when they do get it wrong.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the responsibility point because I completely agree with you. Because I remember seeing this story just a few days ago, and it really got my gears grinding. Because I'm not sure if you knew about this, but the TPA did this thing a little while back, or at least we commented on the story, that HMRC has lost over £2 million worth of equipment over the last few years, right? They've lost laptops, they've lost phones, potentially with possibly with very, very sensitive information on, right? Which anybody can get access to once you get access to a laptop and a phone, which is, I wouldn't say relatively easy to get access to, but if you've got the smarts, you've got the know-how, you can do.
Yeah.
Why would I trust HMRC staff to use AI to spy on social media accounts? And how can I trust them to do that when, one, they consistently lose the equipment that they were using the AI on, and two, as we've seen before, if they just lose things at HMRC, how are they just not going to lose all data and it go into the ether and possibly get leaked into the public domain?
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical story of incompetence from these Quangos. They have proven time and time again of the sort of diseconomies of scale that these large size bureaucracy can have. And they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, even though they say that we're going to use AI to improve efficiency and scale back staffing costs. They're not going to do that. They are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, as we've seen with HMRC's backroom bureaucracy, that's got considerably larger in the last few years. And I think the argument they make regarding AI is because there's been lots of discussions over using AI on the public services, and I wouldn't say I'm super skeptical of AI. I'm like relatively bullish on parts of it. I know it definitely can help people with their work, and it's certainly helped me with my work in the past. But perhaps sometimes maybe a little bit more than I'd like to admit. But and I'm not against AI being used in public institutions. But I suppose my problem with it, and I'm sure this is a problem of yours, I've got a specific distrust of HMRC using it because, one, when it comes to tax evasion and tax fraud, that only costs, the exchequer around 5-6 billion a year. Obviously, that's £5-6 billion too much, granted. But nevertheless, I don't see how they're going to find tax evasion and tax fraud by looking on people's social media accounts, because if you are committing tax evasion and fraud, you're not exactly going to be talking about it on Facebook or X, are you?
No, you're probably going to be slightly wiser about it. They have said that they will only use AI for criminal investigations, but I think criminal investigations, that is something that should be handled by people. There are a lot of examples of industries where AI is incredibly useful and can replace people and work very, very efficiently. But there are some industries where it's so important to have individual human judgment and individual human accountability as well for when they get it wrong. And I don't think criminal investigations is the place to be replacing people.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think there was this investigation a little while back into how long if you collated the average time of people waiting on the phone for HMRC, it came to around like 700 years spent left on the phone, right? And that's because apparently they've been degrading the part of the phone services, right? They've been deliberately not using it so people would have to go online. Now, I don't mind going online to sort things out. I get that. I'm a young person. I can do that. But the types of people calling up HMRC, businesses, the elderly, whoever it might be, need a person there to actually talk to sort out through the problems that they have. And going online 9 times out of 10 for them just simply doesn't cut it. So they're able to degrade their phone services and instead focus their time and energy on a new experimental piece of AI in order to catch tax fraud and tax evasion. Surely the problem with that is that they're taking money and actually time away from a key frontline service that they should be providing, but also eventually possibly even causing more potential tax fraud and more potential problems because the people on the phone who need help are not getting their needs met. And actually, if not done correctly, they could be liable for more charges and more problems and more potential fraud in the future, which is not caused by them, but is caused by the incompetence at HMRC because they're too busy, playing around with new pieces of technology.
Yeah, no, I mean, their customer service is at an all-time low. Absolutely. There have also been massive delays in tax refunds, people waiting 4 months to get tax that they've overpaid back in their own pockets, which is just absolutely atrocious. Call waiting times are skyrocketing, and people want to be able to talk to people on these matters. They are personal financial matters most of the time, and that needs human interaction. Just trusting a computer, just trusting a website is not enough for most people.
But also people at HMRC are busy with staff networks at the moment, aren't they? So what are they up to in their staff networks?
Yeah. So about 120 people within HMRC are allowed 20% of their working time allocated to staff networks.
20%?
20%. A day a week.
Oh, God. What are they doing in these staff networks, right? Because I know our colleague Joanna, our investigations campaign manager at TPA, is big on staff networks, but I've always been rather confused by them. Is it like a little group they go to where they talk about individual issues, or is it just an excuse to socialise, an excuse to have a drink? Not that I perhaps want HMRC staff members drinking all that often, perhaps, but nevertheless, like what are they actually doing in these groups? And and if we don't know, what are the types of groups they're actually going to?
I mean, so they're things on sort of sex and gender, race, social mobility, all of these typical EDI staff networks that just. It's fair enough being part of these staff networks, but dedicating working time, taxpayer paid for time to that seems complete dereliction of duty.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's funny you mentioned the race one, because actually now my mind jogs back to just last week. I think HMRC was on the front page of the Daily Mail, a story we commented on. That their race equality or race commission network, whatever it was called, doesn't really matter what it was called at the end of the day, right? It's just some typical EDI network. They were hosting a session during working hours in the late morning, early afternoon. So the guilt of being British. You were saying this, the guilt of being British.
Absolutely.
Why? What has that got to do with any of the functions that HMRC performs? And why on earth are HMRC officials wasting their time on what is clearly just a sort of anti-British sort of, I would say, equality, diversity and inclusion woke event, where naturally for that hour they could either be answering the phone or doing something significantly more productive with their time. And that's not just unique in HMRC, of course, but it appears to be that even the biggest Quangos, the biggest organisations, the most well-known organisations have this type of stuff almost inbuilt in them. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I was looking at something the other day that their EDI team is a team of 30 members of staff. Okay. The team that has been putting together the inheritance tax analysis, right, going after the family farms in this country, that's a team of 5 junior members.
Wait, so the people who have come up with the policy to slam family businesses and slam family farms, and as we know with the story yesterday, potentially even going after to gift giving and tightening rules around that. The team for that was 5 people.
Five people, all very junior staff members.
And yet
their EDI role team is 30.
30.
Yeah.
That I shouldn't laugh, but you have to, right?
Absolutely atrocious. You just see where their priorities lie.
Yeah.
It's not with the people providing food for this country.
Yeah, right.
It's with people. It's with the woke.
It's with the woke. No, I can see why you got your bugbear about that. I mean, I think that's the important thing is people think that organizations like that are like, they're not harmless per se, but they are sort of benign, sort of, bureaucratic, cog purring machines, right, where people just go in and they go to work and they do what they need to do and they go home. But actually there's more pernicious ideological elements involved within these organizations, which, as you've just described, are either taxpayer funded or done on the taxpayer's time. And I think it's quite clear that the staff networks like the one I mentioned earlier, like the ones you mentioned, the EDI roles in HMRC, they should just be abolished, right? They just need to go.
Absolutely. It is an organisation that should be completely unbiased. There should be no political sway to it whatsoever, other than doing their job correctly, which they're not doing.
Yeah, totally.
They're outsourcing that to AI.
Well, there's brilliant stuff, Anne. Thanks. I mean, I'm gonna, what's it called? I'm gonna whinge about my one now, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, because the environment energies has really got me annoyed this week, predominantly because of 2 stories. So the first story is they put out a memo of how to save water at home during this supposed drought we're having. Right, it's a bit hot. I'll admit that.
It's a bit warm.
It's a bit warm. I'll admit that. I'm perhaps not appropriately dressed for the weather, but I don't change my wardrobe for the weather. I stay in one type of clothing all year. But they put out this collection of ways to save water at home during the drought. I'll just read out a few to you. So, install a rain butt to collect rainwater to use in the garden, which I think's very, very, very weird. Fix a leaking toilet. Leaky loose can waste 200-400 litres a day. I agree. Nothing wrong with fixing a leaky toilet.
Sure. Use
water from the kitchen to water your plants. Again, not entirely against that in principle, but people can use their hose pipes, I suppose.
That differs if you're using it from the tap.
Yeah, right. So it's about the amount of water you're using from a hose pipe, because with the tap you can turn it on and off quicker and it produces less water coming out of it. Speaking of which, avoid watering your lawn. Brown gas will grow back healthy.
Yeah.
Although, of course, some people in the summer might just want to water their lawn. As it might be getting a bit old and a bit stale or whatever it might be, and they want to sort it out. Leave people alone, let them do the work. Turn off the taps from brushing teeth or shaving, which I'm actually pretty good at, which, believe it or not, I'm pretty good at. So I've got the Environment Agency seal of approval there. Take shorter showers, not against that in principle. I mean, if you want to take a long shower, I don't see anything wrong with it either, right? Because sometimes you want a long shower, but I've got no patience and I just want to be in and out of the shower in about 5 minutes. But this is the one that really, really got me, and I'd love to get your reaction on this one. Is to delete old emails and pictures, as data centers require vast amounts of water to cool their systems. So they want you to go back through your phone and they want you to delete, old pictures of you and your friends and you and your family, and delete old emails, because we need to save water in this country. One, there's a disgusting rationing instinct to this, which I dislike, which is like, it's not about abundance. It's not, maybe we just need to build more reservoirs and have more water. It's no, you need to ration your water usage, one.
Yeah.
And second of all, that is just summing up how much of a clown world Britain is living in right now, that you have a group of Quango quats telling you to delete your emails because you need to save water during a very hot summer.
I can guarantee you they're not deleting their emails. Can absolutely guarantee you. That's ridiculous. Oh my God, what a country we live in. The weather that we're experiencing now, okay, it's warm. It's not unusual summer weather.
Yeah.
It's 30 degrees. less than. The reason we have a drought, even though we are a country that perpetually rains, is because we don't have the infrastructure in this country to provide enough water for the population.
Totally.
And to sort of target the little man and say, turn off the tap. Stop brushing your teeth. Delete your emails.
Yeah, and delete the old pictures of you and your family because it's causing the data centers too much stress. Oh, it's a genuine tragedy.
That is going to make a real difference to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also is symptomatic of a country in decline where you have a non-governmental organisation, a Quango, telling you to ration water rather than basically just saying nothing at all, because we're a country surrounded by water as one, and you turn on a tap and water's come out, and I don't think there's any need for water rationing in this country. I think there's one thing we know about Britain is like we're pretty abundant in water, right? Well, I think we're going to be just fine. Although, dealing with water is obviously one of the environmental agency's big issues, as is apparently fishing in water. So I'm sure you saw this as well. David Lammy, a good old foreign secretary, who's I'm not a personal fan of, but nevertheless, he went to meet the Vice President J.D. Vance on his holiday in the Cotswolds, I believe, and they had a spot of fishing.
Lovely.
What a nice little afternoon. And they took pictures of it, and it went online, and, David Lammy was saying, it's so great to spend time with the Vice President, and all that kind of stuff. Looked like a relatively amenable, friendly meeting, and, it's obviously good to see Lammy being friendly with J.D. Vance, especially considering what he used to say about the current President of the United States back in the olden days. But nevertheless, Lammy has now been charged by the Environmental Agency, or he's submitted himself to be charged by the Environmental Agency, because he's been doing what's called illegal fishing because he doesn't have a fishing license, right? And again, to bring it back to what I was saying earlier about this summing up Britain, doesn't that, because you've seen the jokes before, doesn't that just sum up modern Britain of, mate, you don't have a license for that, right? You don't have a license. Sorry, mate, I know you're with the Vice President, but you need a license to fish with the Vice President. That to me is just one of the most pathetic. I mean, it's funny, but it's also not funny because it just shows what a pathetic sort of papers please, license please society we have, which is ruled by petty quangocrats like the Environment Agency and indeed HMRC and all the other organisations. And it just shows that there shouldn't even be a need to fish on private land, right? Basically, especially if it's your own private land, or if the Vice President where he is, you can at least make an exception there, right? To be even more charitable. But it also proves that we're actually not a particularly serious country if this is what the concern of a taxpayer-funded organisation is, right?
And I mean, J.D. Vance will have come to the UK, enjoyed lovely holiday, met David Lammy, and then his takeaway from that is going to be, oh my God, their country's mad.
Well, he thinks we're mad anyway.
Do you mean you need a license to go fishing? It's pretty insane. I mean, I don't think it's good that David Lammy has. I think it's good that he's admitted that. Sorry, I didn't realise you had to have a license and blah blah blah. He's taking accountability for it. But the fact that it's needed in the first place.
Yeah, right. Okay, I understand, because that's quite a charitable position to say that he's taking accountability for it. But what's even funnier is that he didn't know it was needed in the first place.
He didn't know it was needed in the first place because it's just taking a rod and going fishing.
Yes, right. Even our politicians don't understand the sort of web of laws that Quangos have either not created but enforced and grown over the years that they've existed, to the extent where our own foreign secretary has now had to submit himself, almost like, kneeling down in front of the Quangocrat saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Quangocrat, I didn't have my fishing license or my fishing rod license." It just proves that we're a bit of a clown country at the moment, which is controlled by people who aren't elected. First of all, let's be honest with you. People aren't elected who have no transparency, really, until people like us at the Taxpayers Alliance and others look into them. And thirdly, people who are obsessed with petty, minute laws that can cause trouble or real disadvantage to people, or just like gub up the system and just add layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy onto systems and policies and just daily life that just don't need to be there. So I think that the Environmental Agency is got my gold star of the week, especially if you look back at what the Environmental Agency actually does when they actually don't seem to be able to keep our waters clean, right? I mean, that's one of their core jobs as a Quango. I mean, they've got a total budget of almost £2 billion, right? That's not a small bit of change for a Quango to have.
That's a massive.
And yet they seem to be more interested in spending their time on telling Brits not to turn the taps on, or they're too busy telling the Foreign Secretary to get a license for fishing, or they're too busy trying to tell ordinary people actually the best way to save water in this so-called drought we're having is to delete emails and pictures of your family. So yeah, I feel this has been a pretty not revealing week per se, but just sort of a flashpoint in revealing how much of a joke Britain is when it comes to its sort of Quango state.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm glad we had a little moan, little whinge about that. Keep complaining about HMRC, of course, because I'm sure as hell they'll ring you up after this and say, "Oi, Anne, don't complain about waiting times. I've just picked up the phone to you now." And I'm sure anyone at the Environment Agency who wants to come and have a go at me for not deleting my emails is more than welcome to, because quite frankly, I keep a very good digital record, and I delete emails and photos when necessary, but not when some petty Quangocrat tells me to. So, good fun. Anyway, good to talk to you, Anne.
Nice to talk to you, Will.